Welcome back to another Mike Reads Reviews. Tonight we're going to be reviewing Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Sort of. Because I kind of have a bit of an ulterior motive. And that is, I'm still looking for a bookstore to buy all of these books that are coming in as recommendations, and to buy all of the books that you guys agree I should be reading in my series, Should I Read This? I'll put a link to that series in this video's description. So I'm still looking for a bookstore. Again, even if it's some obscure Jim's bookstore in Akron, Ohio, happy to buy from them as long as I can even so much as pick up the phone and place an order over the phone. If I can do it online, that'd be even better. But there's a certain online bookstore that starts with an A that owns virtually all of the online book sales, and I'm trying to, from a moral and ethical position, get away from that company. So the reason I want to talk about Sun Tzu's The Art of War isn't the actual content of what is an extremely short read in The Art of War, but to talk about the book itself, the actual publication, and where I got it from. Hopefully this will allow us to branch out and maybe get down the pathway of actually finding a bookstore that I might be able to be willing to buy from on a more regular basis. So I'm doing this basically to introduce you guys to a way of buying books that, I don't know, maybe you haven't been involved with, and maybe you're with me in actively trying to boycott the big A. So I'll talk very briefly about the book itself. The Art of War was a very, very short read. It's incredibly on the nose. I talked about this in my Jordan Peterson review, that I like reads that are extremely on the nose. Given the nature of where warfare has come with the advent of flight and robotics, I'm not so sure how applicable it is to today. However, I can see why it was so successful and was so widely used in its time, and basically was still very widely used through the Civil War. And I believe it wasn't until the Vietnam War that this stopped being mandatory reading over at West Point Military Academy. So I actually liked the read. It was kind of boring, even for my taste. It was kind of dry, even for my taste, but it was extremely on the nose, and it was a very short read. And you guys know how much I like the short reads. The publication, however, comes as not just as The Art of War, but it also is "and other classics of Eastern philosophy." So if I just go to the chapter contents, we have The Art of War, and then we have The Art of War with commentary, because even the translation into English can be not as straightforward a read as some might think. We've also got the Tao Te Ching. We've got some Analects from Confucius. We've got the Doctrine of the Mean. We've got the Great Learning, and we've got the works of Mencius. So there's kind of a lot of Eastern philosophy crammed into this one book, and it's really not that thick of a book. So I have to imagine, of course, that these works aren't really all that long. But as far as the ergonomics of the publication arc itself are concerned, this is my all-time favorite publication. So I'll give you the name of the publisher. This was published by, let me open up, Canterbury Classics in San Diego. So let me tell you where I got this, because we've got a bit of a gold leaf going around the edge, which makes the pages a bit more rigid around the edge, so it's a bit more durable when you grab them. And it's also a little bit easier to actually grab the page itself because of that gold leafing. The pages themselves are, in my opinion, exactly the right weight. The text is not too small to read. It could have, I suppose, be bigger, but because of the line spacing, keeping track of things is really easy. And the chapter breaks are the way they've done them is excellent, I think. And the binding is incredible. The hardcover, it feels like leather almost. It feels like some sort of truly, the way they used to make books, say in the 1800s, is what it feels like. I know it's not. It can't possibly be. Because there was a lot of handcraft in those books. But, I love the feel of the book in my hands. And I'll tell you where I was able to get this, folks, and that was at Costco. And the price in the book that I wound up paying, and I don't know if I'll be able to get this on screen, is $14.99. So for $15, and the list price is $24.99. So I'm not sure where you would go about getting this book online. I never bothered to look, but I would imagine it would be $10 cheaper to go to Costco and get it there. And on that note, let me bring up the other book I bought there at the same time, The U.S. Constitution and Other Writings. Again, I bought this because the ergonomics of the actual publication are incredible, really unmatched in anything I've ever experienced in reading. And I'm not going to do a review of the content itself because there's so much content in here and so much of it's stuff I've already read. And I'm not sure how I would put together a review of the Constitution. But we have the Federalist Papers worked into here. I'll go through the contents: the Mayflower Compact, the Silence Do-Good Letters, an edict by the King of Prussia, rules by which a great empire might be reduced to a small one, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, 1775, the Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, the Treaty of Paris, the Virginia Plan, the Northwest Ordinance, the Constitution itself, the Federalist Papers, George Washington's first inaugural address, the Bill of Rights, Thomas Jefferson's first inaugural address, the Louisiana Purchase Treaty, the Star-Spangled Banner, the Monroe Doctrine, the Indian removal. There are pages and pages in this contents of incredibly important historical documents that may not be the most well-known. Harry Truman's inaugural address, the Marshall Plan speech, the Civil Rights Act itself of 1964. But this creates an extremely valuable reference guide for a ton of extremely important historical documents. So it's nice to have it all in one place that isn't. I don't like staring at screens when I read. I like actually physically holding a book and seeing it on pen and paper. So it's really nice to have this all in one copy, in one printed text, and as a singular location that if I ever need to look up this document, I just grab the book off the shelf and I can, in a moment's notice, look up 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the federal income tax, Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, the 19th Amendment, FDR's New Deal proposal, the actual text of it. There's the Social Security Act of 1935. I have the actual text of it. And having it in this extremely ergonomic publication just makes it so much nicer to read. And again, $15. So for $30, I got 2 volumes. Let me do this way. 2 volumes of Eastern philosophy and of U.S. historical documents that are extremely ergonomic reads, and for fairly cheap, $30 combined, plus tax, of course. So I wanted to let people know about that, because if you are looking for books, maybe look at places that we wouldn't normally think of as bookstores, because when Costco had these, I wasn't going to Costco looking for books. They just happened to have them. And I was like, wow, that's kind of neat. And then I held them in my hand and I was like blown away by how comfortable and how ergonomic they were. So I decided to take them home. So hopefully that has brought some insight to everybody at home. And yes, I am still looking for a more regular bookstore to buy things. So do let me know in the comment section if you guys have one. So that's been my review of those 2 books, including The Art of War. And we will see you in the next one. Night, folks.